Oi, oi, hello and welcome to another trends video for GG.CO.UK. Again, kindly sponsored by Boyle Sports. We have reached the festive period. A King George trends video has already been unveiled on the channel. There will be a special festive weekend watch coming out tomorrow, or may have been out, depending when you're watching this, that does cover the feature festive grade 1 action. But in this particular video, as you've been able to tell from the thumbnail and the title, I am going to quickly surmise the Savills Chase and Welsh National trends. These are two really good looking races year in, year out. Obviously, they come with different spheres. We have the Savills Chase, which has Gold Cup winners in abundance in there. And then we have a Welsh National, which has some top class handicappers in there. We've had two Gold Cup winners in recent years win that race in Native River and Synchronised. And of course, we've had Bindery and Silver Birch that have won the Welsh National to go on and win the Grand National proper. Also, in the description, there will be a link to both articles that I've written. So one for the Savills Chase and one for the Welsh National. So while I'll paraphrase in this video the key trends you need for each of these events, you can click the links in the description to read a bit more of an in-depth review of the trends. What I try to do in there is look at different categories to see whether they do have any relevance or not. And then I've also steered in some financials to those too. So there are some numbers of age or ratings or profiles that come in for horses that if you did just bet those blind, you could make a small profit. Anyway, all food for thought. Of course, form study is the #1 pointer for finding a winner of a horse race, but the trends can help too. So without further ado, we're going to crack straight on with the Savills Chase. This year's renewal looks like an absolute monster clash. We've had the John Durkan earlier this season that saw Factor Far win for his first time in open company, just taking the scalp of Spillane's Tower, who'll be running in the King George over in Kempton on Boxing Day. But of course, we had Galloping de Champ in there as well, who ran much better than he did last season. However, he did finish third in the race. Jerry Colon will be in this race again. He ran pretty poor at Downraw. There's no way to say that in sort of any other light. But he was sent off 7-4, second favourite behind Galloping de Champ in this race 12 months ago. For me, that was Galloping de Champ at his absolute finest. And I don't think many horses would have beaten him that day. However, we're going to look at the trends for this year because there's a few that I've picked out that I don't think they're very outlandish, but it is slightly eye-opening to see where things stand. So because we're doing two of these races, I'll be as quick as I can with them, but I want to give you enough detail so that it's worth listening to. Key trends for the Savills Chase. Likely to be aged between 6 and 8 years old. This has been a race that has really helped horses that are stepping into open company, taking their seasons out of novice seasons, and then turning into the big league. It is a fantastic race. We've got some big names on the honours roll. Tidal Bay in 2012, when Ruby Walsh rode the horse through, I don't want to say a wall of horses, but through a number of horses. One of the greatest finishes ever. He was an 11-year-old when he did that, but we have seen in more recent years that it's either like second season novices or third season novices that do tend to take this race. All winners this century have come from the top 4 in the market. So again, when we say some of these, especially price-related ones, and I say they come from the first couple in the market or the first few, it sounds like it's pretty obvious, but we've had some okay priced winners in here as well. They haven't all been shorties, but they've all come from the top 4 in the market. Now, interestingly, off the back of that, 50% of the winners have come from the first 2 in the betting, and 50% of the winners have come from 3rd and 4th in the betting. The same is true for this century and the last decade. Now, if you were to bet the 3rd and 4th in the betting blind this century, you would be showing a profit. You'd be showing a profit too for the last decade. So, comes from the first 4 in the betting, but betting the 1st and the 2nd in would cost you a bit of money. So, food for thought there. They should have an official rating of at least 160. Already touched on how good the renewal looks this year. There's been no problem for most of the horses ticking that box. They will have run in the last 60 days. Again, of the ones mainly mentioned, that'll be a box tick for most of them. Probably did not win last time out. That's been a big pointer this century for winners of the race. They didn't necessarily win on their last start. Of course, Galloping de Champ was beating the John Durkan last season. And as I say, that was probably his best performance for me that I've seen the horse ever put in. Preferably, though, they did finish in the top 3. Should have 4 or more wins over fences, and they should have already won at 3 miles. They must have won a grade 2, but ideally has already won a grade 1. So that's going to tick the box again for most of these. And course form is preferable, but it's not essential. So they're sort of the highlighted trends for a Savills Chase winner. As I say, there's a link in the description where you can read the whole piece for Savills Chase runners, but we're going to move on to the Welsh National. Now, 2009 Dream Alliance just got the job done. There's a film that's out about this one as well. It's actually one of my favourite Christmas films because it's such a good story of a group of people coming together to own a horse with a dream and then going to win a Welsh National is something special. I touched on the fact we've had Synchronise that's won this and won a Gold Cup. Native Rivers won this and won a Gold Cup. Bindery, Silver Birch have won this and won a Grand National. And it's always a good-looking race. I don't think it gets the press or the coverage that it probably deserves, given the fact that we have had some real good horses that have won this race in the past. But it looks to be a crackerjack again this year. Unfortunately, there's no Mr. Van Gogh. He did run at Sandown. I sort of half fancied him at Sandown, but I thought it was going to be a prep for a Welsh Grand National. They've not been able to turn around quick enough, but that is something we're going to come on to in terms of the turnaround for most likely winners of a Welsh National. So they must have had between 1 and 5 chase wins, but preferably they want to have 2 to 4. So narrowing the field down, 1 to 5 wins, but really you want to be looking for 2 to 4 chase wins. They must have run this season, and preferably more than once. That will be important this season because there's a couple of horses that are coming back from a longer layoff that haven't run this season, and no winner this century has done that. Has probably failed to complete in their career, so pulled up, fell, etc., but not last time out. Horses that failed to complete last time out are just zero this century. It doesn't happen. They should have finished in the top 4 last time out, and incrementally, if you look at the article, top 4's about 90%, top 3's about 80%, top 2's about 70%, and first last time out's about 50, nearly 60%. So I know that's something that seems like it's quite obvious, but really, you do get a lot of these handicaps where horses can be far down the field, not so much for a Welsh National. You really do want to find a horse that finished top 4 last time out, but you could buff that down even further to 3rd, 2nd or 1st, depending on how many qualifiers you've got left. Likely to be rated between 131 and 145, and probably or possibly carrying 10 stone dead or to 10 stone 10. Now that's quite a niche one, and if you pair those two together, you'll struggle to find one this year. It does depend where the top weight is, but most runners fall into the bracket of 131 to 145, and most runners fall into the bracket of carrying 10 stone 10 down to 10 stone. So it doesn't really whittle the field down too much, but in this instance, popping those two together might actually help a little bit. It's going to whittle things down a tiny bit. I wouldn't use that as a sole disclaimer, so if horses don't tick that box, I wouldn't be too harsh on them, but it's worth thinking about. Ideally, they've already run over 28 furlongs or further, but it isn't essential. Lots of horses have not tried the trip and come and won here. Most of the horses that have tried the trip, I don't think they've had more than 2 wins over the distance. So again, like, you wouldn't look at that necessarily as a negative, but it just goes to show that horses could have run over the trip. They don't necessarily have to have won. All of the last 11 winners had already raced at Chepstow. That seems to be more prevalent now than ever. In the past, we've had lots of horses that have come for their first look round Chepstow and won the race. But yeah, the last 11 winners had already raced at Chepstow. And we're going to give a bonus point as well to horses if their last run came at Chepstow. That seems to be a big focus this century, where horses ran or prepped at Chepstow, sometimes over hurdles, sometimes over fences. But we'll give a horse a bonus point for that. Again, we wouldn't necessarily rule horses out if they didn't tick that box. So look, 2 trends to look at there. The Savills Chase is going to be a fascinating race, especially with the way that the King George is shaping up as well. So we're going to have some cracking action over the festive period. The Welsh National's always a cracker. The market has been spun a little bit now with Mr. Van Gogh not coming, but these trends might help us whittle the field down a little bit. And as I've said many a time in lots of these videos, I do like the trends as something to sort of bolster an opinion or to be added on the side, but really form study is where it comes out key. Some of the races like the December Gold Cup, all the box tickers, the main ones do actually point ourselves to the winner. Some of the races, especially the Open Company, it might not. But I thought the Savills Chase was interesting this year, especially that top 4 in the market and the 3rd and 4th in the betting. Some might say we're due a bit of a shock, but whichever way you want to purvey these stats, links in the description so you can read them properly. And of course, I've sort of surmised them in this video for what I would class as the key trends. We'll see you all again very soon. I hope you have a great Christmas and a very happy New Year.